It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Wiki-JS. Now, last year, or maybe a little bit longer, I did a video on XWiki, and at the time I was looking for a replacement for Confluence, something that I've used at my main job, my main work, and my enterprise company uses that and pays for it. And it's got some really great features and some really cool stuff about it that I liked that made it easy to make the wiki pages and actually make them look pretty good and readable. And it was something I was really looking for and that I hadn't seen in too many wiki software options that were out there. And then I found XWiki. And XWiki is terrific and tremendous, so I did that video on it, and if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you go and check it out. But then a few people had, sent me a message saying, hey, would you do something on Wiki-JS? So it hasn't just taken me this long to get to Wiki-JS. I didn't do it on Wiki-JS back then because I did look at it, and I just didn't feel like it had the features and the comparable capabilities that I was looking for at the time. So I just thought, let me let this mature and see how it goes. And let me just tell you now, it has matured and it has got some really great features and some really cool stuff. So when you first look at their homepage right here, you can already see that it says you can run it in Docker, Heroku, Kubernetes, Mac OS, of course on Windows Server if you want to do it that way. We're going to run it in Docker today because I think it's a really great way to run a wiki as a personal type wiki. Now, if you're looking to run something for an enterprise or for a company you work for and you're open to running something open source, then I would definitely suggest going out there and learning Kubernetes if you don't already know it. And getting it set up that way, or at least in Docker Swarm, something where you've got kind of a clustered system that'll give you high availability and a system that kind of has some automation behind it, I think is terrific. Docker is great, but there's definitely limitations, and that's what Kubernetes and things like that are trying to overcome and kind of make up for, is those limitations. So just be aware of that. So we're going to get into Wiki.js today, and I just want to go through the install with you guys. And I've actually already got it installed, and I'm kind of doing some setup, and I started doing something because it's really big and I don't want to spend a ton of time on going through the setup, but I do want to show you a few things that will make it a little bit easier for you to kind of jump in and get started and try it out. So we'll kind of go through that after we do the installation. I do want to kind of go through the user interface and some different things about that, but there's a lot here, as you would expect with any kind of wiki that's going to have a lot of capabilities. There's a lot here that you can do with it, and like I said, it has really grown over the last year and a half or so since I did the XWiki stuff. I've got some MDI icons up here, so I'll show you kind of where that's at. And I'll have these links in the show notes for you guys in the description so that you can go out and get these things. And of course, the show notes will have all of the steps that I'm using to install this today. So we're going to use the Linux server Wiki.js stuff. I love Linux server. They do some really great work. They make it really nice, and they always give a nice docker-compose file to get things set up. So we'll go through the install here in just a minute. First, I want to talk about Patreon and my patrons. I just want to say thank you so much to all of my patrons out there on Patreon. I really cannot tell you how much it means to me that you support me and you support my work and you enjoy my content. I really just truly appreciate that you're out there showing me how much you appreciate it by being a supporter and a subscriber on Patreon. I post all of my videos every week over on Patreon as well. So if you don't want to rely on YouTube to provide you through their algorithm the updates that I've put out a new video, then suggest try going over to Patreon. If you want to support me over on Patreon, I'll have the links in the description and in the show notes. Again, thank you so much. I just really cannot tell you how much it means to me. Let's get started. Alright, so like I said, I love the Linux server stuff. They do a really great job of making things easy to get set up and installed. They always give you a nice docker-compose file, and they have a few extras in there sometimes, which really helps as well. But they also tell you, hey, we have this set up for AMD 64, we have it set up for ARM 64, and we have it set up for ARM v7. So if you're running a Raspberry Pi 4, I believe you need the ARM 64 v8 version here. If you're running a Raspberry Pi 3 or earlier, then you'll want the v7 version here. So just be aware of that. But they do have the AMD 64. That's what we'll be using today because that's what I'm setting it up on. But really, this is the Docker Compose file. There's just one little change in here that I think we have to make, and really we're ready to go. But we'll kind of go through that together. So what I've done is on my Proxmox server, I've just set up a Ubuntu 2004 system. And right now it just has the root user. So I want to show you guys how to set up your non-root user in a really simple way. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to type in root and log in with my root password. And I'm just going to clear that terminal. I know that's pretty small. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger text. It's just going to make the whole screen larger, but that's okay. At least you can maybe read it if you're on your phone. Maybe I can even zoom this in a little bit when I edit the video. I'll try to do that as well to make it easier for you guys. In fact, let me go back out and that'll just make it easier. I'll zoom it in with the editing. So really, to add a user in Linux, there's two ways to do it. You can do user add and then the username, but this is going to make you have to go and do a few things manually on your own. So I like the other command, which is add user. I know those look exactly the same basically, but just remember, if it's the alphabetically first add user, then that's the one you want to use. And then you put the username you want. So in my case, I'm going to use Brian. And then it's going to ask me for my password. So I'm going to put in the password that I want. You always should use a nice strong password. And then it's going to ask you for some other information. Now, if you're at a company or a corporation and you're doing this for your users, it might be good to go ahead and put in their full name and all of these things. For me, it's nothing that I need, so I just press enter to kind of get through it. And then at the end right here, it's going to ask you a question. Just hit Y to say, yes, I want to accept all this stuff, and you're done. You've got a new user named Brian. And you've even got a user named Brian that you'll see in the home folder. So it sets up your home folder for you. The one other thing we need to do, or actually two other things we need to do in this case, is first we need to add our user to the sudo group. So we're going to do user mod -a, little a, and then that's capital G. And then sudo, so that's the name of the group we want to add the user to, and then the username or usernames. You can put multiple usernames after this to add them to this group. That's it. Now, Brian, my user that I want to log in as, is going to be part of the sudo group. The last thing I need to do is get the IP address of my system here so that I can jump out of this web terminal, and I'll go into it in a regular terminal because I can make that much easier for you guys to see. And so I'm just going to say IPA and then show, just like this. And that's going to show me my IP addresses, and really what I'm looking for is the one here on my local network. And this machine has been assigned the 128 address, so that's good. I'm going to log out as root user here, and we can just jump out of this one. And I'm going to open up my terminal. I'm going to SSH in as myself, or as my new user here, and that's 168.10.128, I believe. And yes, and I'll put in my user password. I'm going to clear that out. So now I'm logged into my Ubuntu system. And if we do an ls here, you'll see there's nothing in my home directory. So we're going to basically create a home directory structure. So when I do a new system, I always want to create a Docker folder, and then inside of that Docker folder, I'm going to put all of the different Docker applications that I want, and that makes it really easy. All I have to do is back up that Docker folder, and all of the configs and all of the stuff that it stores and everything gets backed up when I do that, and it makes it really easy in case something happens to that machine to restore that backed up Docker folder and just bring everything back up and running when I get a new machine up and going if I need to. So I'm going to do mkdir docker. And in this case, I'm going to cd into Docker, and I'm going to go ahead and create one called Wiki-JS, mkdir Wiki-JS. And you'll see there it is. So we're going to cd into that one, and we're going to do an ls, and you can see there's nothing there. So we're going to do nano docker-compose.yml right there. So this puts us into the nano editor. We're going to go back to our browser, and we're going to go back to our Linux server .io system here, and I'm going to go here and grab this, and I'm just going to copy it just like that. And I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to paste it in, and we're just going to go up here and kind of check out a few things that we might need to change. So I'm going to change this from 2.1 to 3. This is just a personal preference of mine. It's not something you have to do. But the PUID is my user ID, and my PGID is my group ID. So if you want to know what those are, we can save our change real quick. I've already made a change, so I'm going to save it. We can exit, and we can just do ID. And that's going to tell me. And you can see my user ID is 1000, and my group ID is 1000. So we can just go back into the nano, and that's already set. But if yours happens to be different, go ahead and change those numbers to match whatever your user and group IDs are. The next thing is a time zone. I am not in Europe, London. I am in America/Chicago time zone. I'm not in Chicago. I'm on the opposite side of the country from that border, actually. But yeah, so there's that. Now, I'm going to say // which means from the folder I'm in, I'm going to do config. And then one more time, I'm going to do /data. So I'm going to map two folders to these folders in the container. So on the left side of these volume mappings, on the left side of the colon, is my host system. The / means make this thing inside of the folder that I'm currently in, which is home, Brian, Docker, Wiki-JS. So we just created the Docker and the Wiki-JS folders, and we're inside of those folders. So inside of Wiki-JS is going to create a config folder, and inside of Wiki-JS it's going to create a data folder, and it's going to map those to the containers/config folder and the containers/data folder. That keeps all of this stuff inside of that main Docker folder, so that if I need to, when I back up, I'll get a backup of it, move that to another machine with SSH or some kind of script, and then I get those on a daily or weekly basis, whatever I set it to. And then if something goes wrong with my host machine, I've got a backup that I can bring right back up without issue, and everything's the same. All my settings are saved. It's really great. So here on this port, 3000 is a very common port, and it's the same thing. When you have the port mapping, 3000 is mapped to 3000. So this is host side 3000. This is the one we can change, the left side, the host port. This is the container port, so it's kind of like it says, hey, I'm my own machine, and this port is mine, so I can leave it. You should never change the right side of the port mapping, but the left side, I don't like to use that. So I'm going to change that to 9190. That just, for some reason, sounds like a good port to me. I just need to remember what I set it to. And then restart unless stopped, which is a good setting in my personal opinion. So I'm going to save my changes. Just Control O to save, and then Enter to confirm the name. Then Control X to exit out of Nano. Now, I don't have, so if we do a CD here, just go back to home and just clear. I don't have Docker installed yet. You can see it says command not found. If I do docker compose, same thing, command not found. But that's not a problem. I can fix this pretty easily. So first thing I'm going to do is do sudo apt update apt upgrade -y. I just want to get all my upgrades and updates done on this system real quick. We're just going to let this thing run. Shouldn't take very long. All right, we're back into our server. Now I still don't have Docker installed. I haven't installed it yet. So I'm going to do sudo apt install, and I'm going to make sure that I have wget and curl. Yes, I want to install those. It shouldn't take very long either. There we go. Now, I'm going to go out here, and I'll have these links again in the show notes in the description, but I'm going to go out here to my GitHub page, and I'm going to click on this one that says Docker installs. I'll have a direct link. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to go to this one right here. That's the script, this docker install docker nginx or nproxyman.sh. And what this is a script that I've created. I'm going to click on the raw. I'm just going to highlight the URL, and I'll have this URL. I'll have the whole command, everything you need, don't worry. But I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say wget. I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to go back and put a space because it does need a space there. And it's going to go out and just pull down that script. So now if we do ls, we can see we have that script right there. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to do chmod +x and then install. So I'm going to make this executable because right now it's not. Now I can do /install docker nproxyman.sh. Now, let me clear this and I'll run it from the top. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, it looks like you have Ubuntu 2004.3 LTS installed in Focal. So I try to tell you what it looks like you have. Now, it may say you have Pop! OS, or it may say you have some other thing. If you know that that's a Ubuntu base, or a Debian base, or a CentOS base, or a Fedora base, or whatever, pick the appropriate thing. Now, I don't have Fedora set up right now. I do have CentOS 7 and 8, Debian 10 and 11, Ubuntu 18.04, Ubuntu 20.04, 21.04. I also believe 21.10 will work. And then Arch Linux, I have not tried this yet, so if you try this and it doesn't work, or if you try this and you have problems, let me know. If you try it and it does work, let me know. And then, of course, you can exit the installer. But I'm going to use number 4 because that's what I'm on. And the next thing it's going to do is say, all right, just let me know. You press Y for each item you'd like to install. Well, Docker we want, so I'm going to hit Y and hit Enter. Docker Compose, yes, hit Enter. Nginx Proxy Manager. We'll say yes if you don't have it already, but I already have it running on another machine, so I'm going to say no to this. But if you don't have it, hit yes if you want to proxy your stuff from an actual URL. Navidrome I don't need right now, and then speed test I don't need right now. But Portainer-CE I do want, so I'm going to hit yes. And then I want actually the full Portainer-CE. Now, if you already have Portainer running somewhere and you want to link it up to the Portainer agent running on this server, then choose number 2. But in this case, I'm going to choose number 1. I'm going to hit enter, and this thing's going to try to install everything. So it's going to start kind of spinning. It's going to run through the updates, which I just did, so it doesn't take very long. It might take longer if you haven't updated in a while, so just be aware of that. It's going to install Docker-CE, the community edition, and it's going to tell us what version of Docker we got, so just be patient. There we go. We got Docker 20.10.12. Now it's going to try to add the currently logged in user to the Docker group, but it says you'll have to log out and back in for that to take effect, so just keep that in mind. Now it's going to install docker-compose. And again, it should tell us what version of docker-compose we get after it gets finished. Right there, yeah, 1.25.0. And it's going to install Portainer because that's the application we asked for, and it's going to basically install that in Docker for us, which is great. Makes it really easy. So this script is there to make this easier for you if you're going to do this on a new server occasionally. Hopefully that it does exactly what I intend, which is make this easier for you. So we know our IP address, and it says we can go and set up our Portainer-CE instance. So let's just go do that real quick. And Portainer is just a nice graphical user interface for Docker. So I'm going to do .10.128:9000. And it wants you to create a username and a password and everything like that. So I'm going to do that. And then create our admin user. And I want to get started. Now, if you're going to do something else like add other environments, like Portainer agent environments, you can do that. But I'm just going to say get started. And we can clear this message. And then we have our local system. And you can see right here it's got one container, which is Portainer. I showed you how to set up this docker-compose.yml file. But you can also take that YAML code that we already created. And you can come here and you can go to stacks. And you can say add a new stack and then give it a name, all lowercase. So Wiki-JS. And then you can just paste in that same exact Docker Compose YAML code, make those same changes we just made, and then hit deploy. And it's going to do the same exact thing as running this through Docker Compose. So just be aware that you do have that option as well. And sometimes it's nice to run it through here. It makes it a little bit easier. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and run the Docker Compose file. We don't need to do a stack here. And we'll come back and check it out in just a second. So to run this, you're just going to do Docker. Now I do have to log out and back in. So I'm just going to do that real quick. And we'll just log right back in. And I should now be able to do docker ps. Yes, and I can see there's Portainer running. Great. So we're going to cd into docker wiki.js, and we're going to run docker compose up -d. This means run it as a daemon in the background. If you take off this, it's going to run it and it's going to show you a log of what's going on. But to get out of that log, you'll have to use the Control-C hotkey, and that's going to kill your Docker container. So if you use -d, it won't show you all the logging, but you can see that in different ways. But it does bring it up in the background. So it's going to go out and pull down Wiki-JS. And I don't think it takes very long. Yeah, it's a pretty well made container. The image is pretty small. The Linux server guys really do a great job with that. All right, so it tells us that it's done. This is kind of the thing that you're looking for. You want to make sure you didn't see any errors up there. Now, if you want to see your logs, there's two ways to do that. So you can do docker compose logs-f, like Frank. And that's going to show you the logs of everything that's getting started here. And it says browse to this IP address on this port. Now, this is the port that it knows the container's running on. You got to change that to the port that you set in the port mapping. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it's kind of telling you like, hey, this thing's ready to go. Now we can Control-C this, it won't kill the container. And then the other way to see that is through Portainer. So if we do a refresh, Now you'll see that Wiki.js is right here. I'm going to zoom this up a little bit. And right here we can click to see the logs. And if we scroll, you can see it's the exact same logs we were just looking at through the terminal. So it tells you, hey, you can go to this IP address and check these things out. But it's the same thing. So really nice. I really like Portainer. The UI is very easy to follow. It's very simple. Pretty cool program. Really, really great. We're just going to go and open up a tab. And actually from Portainer, the other thing to note is you can get to this very easily by clicking on the port out here for your container. One thing you have to do with Portainer is go and set the environment settings. So if you go to environments, click on local, right here on public IP, set in it's actually in this case the private IP that I'm going to put because I want to make sure that it connects up. But save that. Now we can go back to our containers. And again, we can click on our port and it'll open up to Wiki.js. Then there's Wiki.js. Now this is kind of your first run, create an admin account setup. And we can do this, and it's probably a good idea to do this, but we want to also make sure that we've got it set up for getting to from outside of our private network. So I'll show you guys how to do that as well. So we're going to do brian@fixitdelrio.com, and I'm going to give it a nice strong password here. You have to hit tab 2 times. For some reason it tabs to this little I symbol. And then here I know what I want this to be. So I'm going to call this wikijs.routemehome.org. And then we're going to, so the telemetry is how Wiki.js guys, or how the development team finds out about things that are happening and how it's being used and where it's being used, and they kind of track that. It's up to you if you leave this on or off. Feel free to turn it on or off, but you know, in my case, I think it's good to leave it on because you provide them some great feedback for open source software, but it's very much up to you and how you feel about privacy. If you want to turn it off. Now this is a test system. I'm going to turn it off because I don't want to be throwing off their statistics either. So I'm going to tell it go ahead and do this, and it's going to start finalizing the installation. And you know, it's got some nice little graphics here that kind of show you that it's working. I appreciate that. And then you get a nice party, so that's pretty awesome. And it asks if you want to save that stuff. In this case, I don't. And then now you're going to log in. Now, we could log in, but I'm going to wait for just a second. I'm actually going to go set up my proxy so that I can see what else is going on. So I'm going to go to my Nginx Proxy Manager setup. I'm going to go to my proxy host, and I'm going to add a new proxy. And I want to use that same exact system name or URL that I just typed in. And you want to hit tab. You want to make sure you get a little chip like that. Now I'm going to put in the IP address of my server. Now if this is on the same server as Nginx Proxy Manager, and if you set them up in the same network on Docker, then you don't have to do this. You could just use the Wiki.js name from the container. But in this case, this is on a separate server, so I have to do it this way. And it was 9190. And I do want to use WebSockets, and I do want to block common exploits, and I do want to cache assets. So I'm just going to save this first before I do any SSL stuff, just to make sure that I can access it through the URL. So if I go down, here's my Wiki.js entry. If I go down to the bottom, if I click on it, I come to the page that I expect, which is my start page, and it's going to ask me to log in before I can do anything, but you can see that I do access the page just like I would want to. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to go to the right, click on the 3 dots, click on edit. I'm going to go to SSL, and I'm going to say request a new certificate, force SSL so people can't get to it through the non-SSL site. Make sure my email's here, accept the Let's Encrypt terms of service, and I'm going to get a completely valid SSL certificate for my site. It's going to challenge, and as long as this thing goes away without any errors, you know that you got a good SSL certificate and that Let's Encrypt was able to do that. So if we click one more time, now we get it and we have the little lock, and you can see it says HTTPS, which is great. And we can go here and say, you know what, I want to go to administration. It's going to say, hey, you can't do that. You have to log in. That's fine. We're just going to click login as. It's going to bring us right to that same login page. And I'm going to put in my email and my strong password that I just created. And I'm going to hit login. And it's going to do a little bit of work. And now we're kind of back to this selection, but I'm going to go to administration this time. and we're going to get brought to our administration page, and you can see some nice stats right here on the dashboard. It gives you some really great information right off the bat. And then you've got menus and all kinds of navigation over here on the left for your administration area. I mean, just a long list of things that we can set up, which is great. And then you can always go back to set up your page when you're ready. And there's this little exit. It's not exit the system, it's exit the administration area. So if I click here, you'll see like now it's going to say, what do you want to do? I can say I want to create a home page. Now they have different editors, and some of these say coming soon. They're not ready yet, but that means that there's active development. That's good. And that you'll get new features as they come out. But today you've got a Markdown editor, so if you prefer Markdown, they have it. They have a raw HTML editor, so if you're an HTML guru and you love HTML, they have it. And then they have the visual editor. So if you're somebody like me who's kind of like, you know what, I don't want to do Markdown, I don't want to do that, I'd rather do this visual editor. You click it, it's going to come up, it's going to give you a form. It's going to say, what do you want to call this page? It's your home, what do you want to call it? So I'm just going to call this Awesome Open Source, and then here I'm just going to say, awesome open source from YouTube, the docs. How about that? Sound great? Yes. So there's scheduling things to go out. There's scripting if you want it. There's styles. So if you want to set up styles to make it do extra things, you have those options here, which is kind of cool. And when you look at scripts, it's really talking about HTML. And then right here, we're back to this kind of thing. So it's got a tabbed interface here, but I'm going to hit OK. And then it's going to say, all right, here's your blank page. What do you want to do with it? So you've got all the controls you would expect. And I'm going to zoom this up to make it a little bit easier to see. So right here, you've got H1, and I'm going to call this Awesome Open Source. And then this is a page for all of the amazing open source self-hosted software I cover. I have tutorials and so much more on how to get into owning your software. Okay, how about that? That sounds good. You've got H2, you've got all kinds of styles here that you can do. You've got all kinds of text styling that you can deal with, bold, italics, underline, strike through, superscript, subscript. I mean, so many different things. You've got all these different types of pens and markers you can pick from. You've got all of your indentations. You've got tables that you can set up and put in here. You've got code blocks. You've got, I mean, pretty much anything you would really need in a rich text editor is here. It's pretty great and pretty awesome. If you find that there's not something, you can go learn what the HTML is to do that and just edit it with HTML. But I am done with this one, so I'm going to hit create. And it gives you a nice, really cool thing that says, hey, I'm working on it, I'm rendering it, and then here's my page. Now it's got two sidebars. I'm not wild about the two sidebars, but I see that this is navigation, and then this is page information, and so on. Now, I didn't add a lot of stuff to this awesome open source, but it's because I've got another page completely set up already that we're going to go look at, and we'll kind of work through how we set up this side navigation and things in just a minute, because I've got some examples set up so you don't have to watch me set it all up again. Right now, I want to go through the settings with you. So we're going to go through the settings, and we kind of saw this a while ago. It's just zoomed up now. So if I zoom back out, you'll see that it zooms out and gives you a little bit more detail. If I zoom up, you see this one drops to the next line. And basically, it's telling you what version you're on. It tells you how many pages you have, how many users you have. Now you have the user you created, and then they have what they call a guest user, and you can't really modify that guest user or get rid of it. So don't let that stress you out. Just understand it's just a guest user with no permissions. So as you scroll down, you can kind of check out your dashboard there. If we go to the general settings, so first it gives you, hey, what is your, what's your expected URL? There it is. What's the name of the site? So I don't want this to be Wiki-JS. I want this to be Awesome Open Source. I'm going to tab right there. And then this part, I don't really need to change. My company organization name, also Awesome Open Source. And then how do you want to set this thing up as far as the rights that somebody can, can they take it and copy it or whatever? So let's just do Creative Commons there. Site description, amazing open source software document, just like that. And then index follow. There. All right. Now right here, comments, do you want to allow comments or not? You can turn comments off, you can leave comments on. Sometimes comments are super useful in a wiki, sometimes they're just kind of annoying because you're like, why didn't you just edit the wiki? So I'll kind of leave it up to you whether you turn that on or off, but there you go, you can do that. Now I'm going to say save. You'll get a little green box up here that says, hey, I saved it. And if you look, this changed from Wiki.js to awesome open source, just like I said I wanted it to. If we continue down, you can see here we've got locale. So if your main language is not English, you'll see here I've only got English set up so that I'm saving space, but look at all of the languages and you can go here and click on download so that you've got other options for the languages. So they've got lots of languages here. I can't guarantee that they have your primary language, but check it out and see if they do. If they don't, maybe that's a way that you could contribute back to this project to help make it grow even more. But I mean, there's a lot of languages listed here for locale. So give those a shot if you need something or want something different for the language setup. Update automatically. Kind of leave this up to you. I think update automatically is fine. If it's a site that I'm not too concerned about. Now, if I was going to have this in production, I might turn that off and do the updates myself through docker-compose. And this may not even work with docker-compose setup. So it may be better to turn it off. Multilingual namespaces, so you could allow that if you want to. I don't think we need to in my case, but and then active namespaces, so you can kind of click on that if it's enabled and see what's going on. I didn't make any changes, so nothing there to save. Navigation, this is one that I'll go through on the other site as well, but basically you have different ways of doing navigation. The custom one is the one that I like, and it's the one that it's defaulted to, but they do have a site tree, more of kind of what they already give you. It looks like that, and then here's your custom, and then here's something that it doesn't show. So I'm going to go back to custom right there, and then we'll go through setting up this navigation over on the other full site. Pages, so you can see what pages you have, and you can kind of go through those things and make edits if you need to. You have tags, so you can set up tags, and you can pick tags from people, but you can set tags on the fly as well. And then the theme. Now this is important because I know a lot of people like theming. So there's the default theme, and I haven't really downloaded or set up any other themes, but you can create your own themes for one thing. So here's CSS overrides and HTML overrides and so many other things that you can do there. But then on top of that, you've got icon choices. So if you want to use material icons, you can. If you want to use Font Awesome 5 or 4, then you have that option as well. I'm fine with the MDI icons. And then dark mode. Simple switch. Watch this. Click dark mode. Simple. That is something I love, making it really easy to get into a dark mode. And this is a really nice dark theme, honestly. I like dark themes that are actually dark. I don't like dark themes that, like, this gray would be the darkest gray that they had. That to me is not a dark theme. That's like a medium theme. So I like this. I think they've done a great job with the coloring here. It looks really good. I'm going to switch it back to light because right now I think this is better. I'm sorry if I'm blinding you, but there is a dark theme if you want to set your system up for dark. And then table of contents, a little bit of information there as well. So when you make those changes, hit save again. Groups. So here you can set up groups of users and then assign users to those groups. So right now you have administrators and guests. You might want to have moderators. You might want to have viewers. You might want to have writers. You might, just depends. Go through and set them up, set up the permissions and things like that. Check out the options that you have there. And then, of course, users. You can add users. You can allow users to sign up. So kind of up to you how you do that. But if this is for an organization, you probably want to have like where you're setting up the users. But you want to make sure you have a default area for them to jump into too. So analytics. I kind of like this. It allows you to set up your analytics. And one of the things I like is I use Matomo for my analytics for my main site, for my show notes. And I do it because it provides privacy for you guys. It lets me see a very generic high level overview of information for people who visit. It gives me some like, here's how many visits you had. Here's how many were unique. And here's the country that it shows they were from. Now, if you're on a VPN coming from another country, I can't really tell. But at least gives me some information about, is the site getting traffic? Is it worth it for me to write up all of those show notes all the time? And right now, yeah, it definitely is. So I think that's great. But they have Matomo here. They also have the Plausible, which is another privacy concerned analytics system. So pretty great. I like that they have those options. If you use some of these others, they have those options as well. Let's see. Authentication. So you do have different authentication options as well. So right now you've got local authentication, which means it's using the WikiJS built-in authentication. Allow self-registration. This is where I was talking about you can allow people to register and then use the site, or you can turn that off where you have to basically add the user yourself. Then there's the strategy. So if you want to use Auth0, you can. If you want to use Azure Active Directory, you can. If you want to use CAS, you can. So Discord, I mean, look at all of these things. Dropbox, Facebook, GitLab, GitHub, Google. They have a lot of different ways for you to allow people to authenticate into your system, and I think that's just tremendous. So really cool that it has this capability and this option, and they have LDAP. I mean, just so many really great ways that you can allow this. You can turn on different strategies. So if you have a group that already uses GitLab or GitHub or Rocket Chat or any of these others, Azure AD or any of those things, if you want to keep it simple, you can set this up and get it linked up with those systems, and your users can just start logging in and doing things. You can start assigning permissions through the system. So really terrific. I think that's great. Comments. So we kind of talked about whether you want to allow comments or not allow comments, and then you've got a little bit more control over comments as well. Extensions. So right now, I don't think they actually have any extensions, but they're coming. So they're getting ready to have extensions set up for the system. Again, this is in progress. It's open source software, but you know, they've been building out, and this is just, like I said, from a year and a half ago, just an extreme amount of work that they've done on this thing, and I'm excited to see how much further they can take it. I think it's really great. So rendering, you can kind of choose the way that things get rendered and what things are getting done and how this works and how you just so many things here that you can go through the settings. And I don't want to go through all of these because there's just so much here. A lot of them they'll tell you like, yeah, there's really nothing to set. This one has some on-off switches and a few things, you know, but here like nothing to set, very little to set. Okay, do you want tabs to be changed to spaces for more even spacing? How many spaces? 4 is fine. That's what's defaulted. If you're a 2-space person, switch it to 2. If you're an 8-space person, switch it to 8. That's fine. Nothing to set. So as you click through these, you'll see the ones that say there's really nothing here that you can set, and you'll see the ones that say, yeah, there's stuff here that you should set and kind of check out. They do have some really cool stuff. So they have like KTEX and just so many cool ways to format what things look like inside of the wiki, which I think is awesome as well. So search engines, you know, you can kind of switch and pick what search engines you want things to be working from. I'm good with like the basic thing, that's fine. But if you want something that seems better, or if you have something that might be better, you can go through and kind of check that out and fix that. Storage. If you want to do storage outside of the Wiki-JS and the Docker system, then you have a lot of options here as well. So you have the Amazon S3, you've got DigitalOcean storage, you've got so many other options here. Just pick the one that you like the best if you need extra storage and go get it set up. So API access isn't there yet, but it's coming. Mail, it is here. And if you want this thing to be able to email people about, hey, you got tagged in a post, or hey, somebody commented on a post you made on the wiki, or you know, you got tagged in the wiki, that kind of stuff, you want to set this up. And if you don't know how to set up your email for SMTP, I can't tell you exactly how to do that. That's definitely an email service by email service thing. If you run your own email servers like I do, then you should know what those SMTP settings are, and you should be able to go through this and get it set up pretty easily. But yeah, SMTP is there if you want to set it up. Security, so definitely go through here and kind of check out what you see as things that you should have. Enforce HSTS, so you can do that as well. You need to go set up some extra special things inside of your domain to make sure that that's going to work properly. SSL, we've already got set up through Nginx Proxy Manager, so we don't have to do it here. But if you're not going to use Nginx Proxy Manager, and if you're going to have this exposed on a public IP of a server, you probably want to go set up SSL for this thing. So you definitely want to go through and check out these settings and figure out how that works. Here's your system information, no really settings here, just info. And then they have some utilities here. So you can generate a new authentication public private key certificate. You can reset your guest user if needed. You've got some content utilities as well. You can flush the cache if you need to. If you're trying to migrate from WikiJS 1.x versions, here's some migration stuff for you. And then finally, you've got some telemetry options. So if you do leave the telemetry turned on, you can actually go and set up some of these options and kind of check it out. And then finally, if you're a developer, here's some developer tools that you can also utilize in the system. So really that's kind of the end of it. This is contribute to Wiki.js, which I think is great. So one of the things that you can really kind of check out is how do you contribute and what kind of things can you contribute and help with. I think it's really tremendous to know that. So they have GitHub, they have Patreon, so you can donate monetarily to help support Wiki.js, which I think is absolutely a great way to contribute back to open source. They have Open Collective, they have PayPal, so they have several ways for you to donate money if you're not a developer or somebody who wants to chip in from the development side. But also know that if you're not a developer and maybe you don't have any money but you want to give back, you can do QA. Now when you do QA, the important part is, and that's quality assurance. If you're doing some kind of testing or you find a bug and you want to report that to them, that's great. But make sure you get a video of it, show them how you do it every single time, talk through it, really be clear about what it is you saw and how you made it work, and make sure that it's repeatable. So if they can try to fix that thing, that makes it so much easier for a developer to get in and find where the bug is and actually fix the problem. If you want to do documentation, I'm sure they would love that as well. So kind of get out there and find out how to do the documentation for Wiki.js. There's just a lot of ways that you can contribute to open source. But that's our new setup. That's what you're going to get out of the box. If you follow my guide, you're going to kind of see this type setup. Now I want to jump over to the system that I already have running. All right, so here's my system that I'm actively kind of starting and working on, and then here's the system that we just set up. So we're going to kind of go back up, and we're in the navigation area. So this is one of the more important areas for me that took me a minute to kind of figure out, like, what am I trying to do? So you'll see here on the system we just set up, all we have is home. We don't have anything else set up. And here you see I have home, and then I have web applications, and then I have desktop applications. So the way you do this is when you click on add, you get a few things here. So you get this header, you get this line, this divider, and then you get this link. So as you're making different sections, you can kind of make that left sidebar look a little bit nicer. So this kind of represents that left sidebar where you're trying to set things up. So if you want to actually add a new thing here, you're just going to click on link. And then you're just going to type in whatever you want. So in mine, I said I'm going to do web applications, desktop applications, and mobile applications. And then right here, this is the MDI icons. So I'm just going to go look. And basically, if you go out here to the material design icon site, you can just type in mobile. And if you spell it correctly, it may even bring up some icons for you. There we go. So you've got some different icons that are supposed to represent mobile. So this says cell phone text, that's fine. So we're going to go back in here and we will just add, we'll take out chevron right. That's what that little right arrow thing is. So if you see when I erase it, it goes away. I'm going to put in cell phone dash text. Now if I take out dash text, you see it just has cell phone, that's fine too. So we can be there, that's good. So we're going to save that. Now if we exit, we go back to our page, you see I have these options over here now. Now I don't have these things linked to anything. They don't go anywhere, but I have them set up. So once I've created those tags, I'm going to click here on one of these items. And if you scroll down, you'll see here that it has options. And it starts off with home actually selected. I don't want it to be home, I want it to be page. And then I'm going to select the page. And I've already selected it as web applications, but we'll just click it. So when you hit that, you hit OK. And then it says visible to everyone, or do you only want this to be visible to certain people? And then you could go in and add groups of people that you want it to be visible to. So in this case, visible to everyone is fine. And I'm going to say apply. So I'm going to go back and you see it highlights. So these two don't highlight because I don't have them linked to anything yet. But if I click on home, then of course it goes right back to where it is. If I click on web applications, it's going to go to my web application site. And then here I can start building more pages out from the web applications page. So I don't have a lot of information here, but you'll see that I can start building things out. Now I want to show you that under home, I kind of set this up where I've got an H1 as the top thing, and then I've got site organization and site goal. And you'll look here on the left, this is kind of a navigation of this page. So you can see how it kind of indents. If I put an H3, it's going to indent underneath that. So it gives you this kind of nice outline of what you've got here. But if I click on site goal, you'll see it kind of tries to move me up to that area, which is kind of nice. Now this is already being shown, so it doesn't move, but if I go here, it wants to move me back to where I can see the top. So that's pretty cool. I think that's a really cool feature of this site, actually. You can see that it looks pretty nice just using their default theme. I don't think that there's anything that I would have to do to really change this at this point. But if I go back to my web applications, so now if I say I want to create a new page, and I want that to be under web applications, and I'm going to call this / let's call it Wiki-JS. How about? In fact, this may have to be lowercase. I know you can't use any spaces, but we'll do it this way to kind of keep it consistent. And then it's going to come up with the same thing it did the first time when we were creating that home page earlier. And I'm going to pick Visual Editor. And then I'm going to give it a title, Wiki-JS. Again, you've got those options across the top. Nothing I need to change there right now. So I'm just going to hit that and it's going to give me this page. So I can just put this as an H1. Wiki-JS. Now, when you finish that, hit enter. And the way I would normally do this is I would give you a bunch of text, so we can just go grab some lorem text. And then I could do an H2 that says what you'll need, and then do a list of things. That's the install. Now, that's not getting everything set up, but that's the install. And then we can do an H2 installation of Docker. There. So I could continue like this all the way down. I'm just going to say create. It's going to create this page. It's going to render it, which is great. And then again, you kind of see how this shows you here, but you can also see that it's right here. So if I click on web applications, so when you go into the tree, I want to browse so I can see web applications, and once I click there, click on the web applications icon, and then I can jump to networking, where I kind of started setting up some networking thoughts about things I want to cover for networking maybe. I didn't get those set. Oh yeah, ntop, ng, and then I've also got Wiki.js, so I can jump around and find these things. Now, if I just happen to come in and I'm here at the home page, and I don't know exactly where everything is, I should be able to search. And there it goes. It gives me an article that says Wiki.js. I can just click it and it jumps me right to the article, which is pretty awesome. So this, to me, is a really, really nice wiki system. I've got it zoomed in so that you guys can see it. There's 100% right there on the browser. So I mean, you can see that you get a lot of stuff on our screen. You got plenty of screen real estate to work. I like things zoomed up just because I can't see, and hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better on your phones while you're watching this on your phones. But you can see how this could be a really tremendous site for putting out documentation, for putting out some really great tools and using things to make it easier for people to get to your information. But really, I mean, I think this is tremendous. Wiki.js looks like a really, really cool program, a very promising program, and it seems to have a lot of development behind it, which is awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.